Attachment parenting has really shifted mainstream American parenting because the ideas have kind of filtered down to every modern American parent. Lots of people breastfeed even if they're not into attachment parenting now. In fact, breastfeeding rates are at the highest level since the 1950s when formula was invented. Lots of people actually sleep with their babies in their beds now, up to 20% do that at some point, which is really, really a new phenomenon.
You know, it's not so much the topic of attachment parenting that is sparking so much controversy as much as this picture right here. All right, take a look at it. That's this week's cover of Time magazine featuring a mom who's breastfeeding her 3-year-old son, who I believe is standing on a chair as he is doing it. The image is igniting a debate around the country when it comes to how long is too long to nurse your children. CNN correspondent Deborah Farrick has some more.
There were a lot of people who were surprised. You're still breastfeeding? You know.
For dancer Heather McFadden, breastfeeding her 3.5-year-old son is the most natural thing in the world.
It is a relationship between the mother and the child. And so as long as both are happy doing it, then why not?
Yet Time magazine's latest cover is making a lot of people very uncomfortable.
When they can walk and they can talk, they can go to the refrigerator. It's gross.
I think it stops at 12 or 18 months. That's where you stop. You draw the line there.
Because society's looking at me like I'm the weird one, and we're not. We're not weird. We're actually quite normal. It's just in this culture, in our culture, it's viewed as weird.
Time's newest cover girl told the Today Show she understands the negative reaction, even from some breastfeeding advocates who say the cover ignores the nurturing side of the experience.
I understand what they're saying, but I do understand why Time chose this picture, you know, because it is going to be such a, you know, it did create such a media craze.
The cover is so in your face, it could backfire.
It is an important part of attachment. It is healthy for the child, but to look at these sort of extreme opinions about it might turn some people off to the whole thing.
Behind the controversial photos is a decades-old debate on the benefits of attachment parenting, which says babies develop a strong emotional bond and feel secure the more they're held and the more sensitive parents are to babies' needs. That includes extended breastfeeding, bed sharing, and baby slings. Pediatrician Dr. William Sears started the movement 20 years ago.
The kids who are most attached early on, who learn the concept of trust, these kids actually grew up to be the most independent and naturally secure children.
But for mom blogger Jennifer Levinson, who had 5 kids in under 5 years, breastfeeding, she says, was not in the cards.
My approach to parenting is surviving, making it through every day with nobody hurt and everybody fed, maybe bathed if we're lucky, and happy. I don't judge those that breastfeed, and those that breastfeed should not judge me.
The Time magazine article is mainly about Dr. Sears, and although editors did consider putting the famed pediatrician on the cover, they chose instead to go with an image that would be immediately recognizable as to the gist of the story. Of course, ask yourself which cover you would stop and look at. Deborah Farrick, CNN, New York.
Yeah, I think it was a better business choice to put the cover that they did on Time rather than some doctor, right? Now, attachment parenting involves 3 main components. Let me break them down for you. Moms nurse their children until they are toddlers, sometimes even 3, 4, 5 years of age. Mothers actually wear their babies in slings around their bodies most of the time. You know, it's kind of like a kangaroo pouch. And the baby sleeps in bed with mom and dad in what is known as co-sleeping, and they do that until the child decides that the child doesn't want to sleep in bed with mom and dad anymore. Maybe dad snores, I don't know. So we're not talking about a lot of separation here between mother and child. Is this a good thing? I mean, that sounds like a rhetorical question. How could this not be a good thing? How could this not be good? Joining me with more on this is Melanie Snare, host of Atlanta Mom. We also have Egypt Sherrod, radio host on V103 Atlanta and host of HGTV's Property Virgins. She's also the founder of EgyptSaidSo.com. Rounding out our panel tonight is Catherine Connors, director of blogs and social media at Babbel.com. Catherine is also the author of Herbadmother.com. herbadmother.com. Got it. All right. Let me start with you, Melanie. Is there anything wrong with breastfeeding a child as long as you want?
I think it's your personal decision, but...
But, I knew there was going to be a but from her, Egypt. I knew it. I knew it.
But.
She was looking at that Time cover and she's like...
You have to respect the but. I respect the but on the other side. However, I have a 4-year-old daughter, Mariah, and I cannot imagine. Like, we have very intellectual conversations, and she would literally walk up to me.
So what is she drinking, cow's milk? That's what you're giving her, cow's milk?
Soy.
From a cow?
But she can pour her own milk, so I think that's a little, it's too far for me.
You're uncomfortable. I sense you're uncomfortable with it. Catherine, are these bad moms or good moms?
Oh, gosh, throwing the good mom, bad mom question out there. Look, you know, to each their own, right? The difficulty that I have with attachment parenting, with proponents of the late breastfeeding and co-sleeping and baby wearing, is that it's natural, that it's the right thing to do for your children, that this is the only style of parenting that demonstrates love and respect for your child's needs. And that's just not true, right? The bottle-fed baby is just as well loved as the breastfed baby. The baby that sleeps in a crib in a nursery is just as well loved as the baby that sleeps in bed.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's very Egypt. Now, I mean, we put that photo up with the thing, and every time, she cringes. Every time she looks at that magazine, she's like, oh, I don't even want to look at that. How about you, Egypt?
Well, I'm currently a breastfeeding mom. I had my daughter 4 months ago, and up until I had my daughter, I never thought I would be a breastfeeding mom. There was never anything attractive in any sense of the word. It made me feel uncomfortable. As many people still feel uncomfortable with the thought of breastfeeding.
Not me, I'm a lactivist.
I'm sure.
I'm
sure.
I am. And here's the thing. I'm not like saying you have to force moms. I think moms, whatever they're comfortable with, do it as long as you can, as you're comfortable. But by the same token, I'm looking at these ones, and I don't think there's anything wrong with these 4-year-olds.
Well, now I disagree with that. When I saw the cover, my mouth dropped open. And I say this, like I said, as a breastfeeding mom. When do you stop? There has to be at some point where you say, my child has to grow and be independent. If your child can walk up to you and say, hey, Mom, good morning, at that point you might be done. If your child has teeth, you might want to think they're done.
Well, I mean, that's why I always leave it up to Mom. That's why I always leave it up to Mom.
And I'll say, I breastfed, I have 2 daughters. I breastfed.
How long?
I breastfed 6 months and 9 months, almost 9 months on one. And at one point,
was there a discussion between Mom and Dad as to how long it should be done, or was it totally up to you?
Totally up to me. I mean, my husband supported me, and it's exhausting too. Like, you're going through it. I don't know how these moms do it. Like, it is an exhausting thing, and it's so rewarding.
But let me say this, it's the best diet going. And for that reason alone, I can understand a woman breastfeeding until their child is 7 years old.
Diet for who?
Never lose
it's
your
the best diet for the child or the diet for Mom?
For Mom. Okay, I digress.
That does look good.
No, but that's another important thing.
Time.
Yeah, I think it's good for everyone all along. But do you see how long do you see yourself doing it?
I'm probably going to stop when she's about 6 months, although the doctor says that past 2 months, you really don't have to. Any antibodies that you would pass on to your child to make them healthier, it's pretty much done at 2 months.
Right. But this whole parenting, Catherine, goes beyond the nutrients and that part of it. It's the bonding. Are you afraid, because the doctor in a study says these children become more independent, they become more secure. What do you think about that? Do you think that independence is up in the air on this issue?
I mean, my gut response is that it's nonsense, right? That, but by creating greater degrees of attachment and dependency, you teach them to be more independent. I mean, look, I've done it both ways.
How far did you go?
With my daughter, I wanted to be an attachment parent, and she was having nothing of it. She was a super independent baby, and she was not interested. With my son, he's an attached baby. It was entirely up to him, and my husband and I are having a really hard time getting him out of our bed. Which is one of the things that attachment parenting doesn't really address. He is 3.5.
3.5, yeah.
Yeah, we're done. We want him to be detached, but he is not getting the message.
Yeah.
I think we have to, and we have to ask ourselves and be honest as mothers sometimes. Are we holding on too tight? Is it really that it's better for the child? Or is it that we don't know how to let go? Well, that's what they say in attachment,
though. They leave it up to the child if the child's ready to go, and that's part of the independence. We're going to talk more about this. I know you've got some comments. You can give me a call, 877-TEL-HLN.
as long as both are happy doing it, then why not?
So there are three basic tenets to attachment parenting. One is breastfeeding, and actually people that are into attachment parenting often breastfeed their kids until they're toddlers, until they're 1, 2, or even older. Another of the tenets is what Dr. Sears calls baby wearing, which is this idea that you should keep your baby close to your body at all times.
That was Kate Pickert, staff writer for Time magazine, who reported on this week's cover story. The model and her son on the cover are also causing quite a stir. There she is. She's cringing. Melanie Snare cringing again. Jamie Lynn Grummet talked to CNN's Erin Burnett about how the co-sleeping aspect of attachment parenting affects her marriage. Take a listen.
Does it affect your intimacy? Your personal life with your husband?
No, and I think it's so funny that people say that about, especially about co-sleeping, you know, and it's funny.
With the baby in the bed.
Yeah, right, and it's like, well, I mean, and this is a really personal thing to say, but I mean, if that's the only place you're doing it, then I feel sorry for the people that are assuming that that's, you know, that that's the only place that can happen. So not at all, and I think intimacy is extremely important in a marriage, and I think a strong marriage is going to be a great foundation to show your children how to be raised confident and happy. And I had that with my family too. So my parents were great role models for me.
Like I told you, folks, attachment parenting, I think it's a good thing, but I don't believe in forcing it upon anyone. I don't think it's the end-all, be-all. But the people that are doing it's great. I mean, you see the stories I cover here every night. My goodness, there's so many bad parents out there. These are parents who are involved and literally attached to their children. All right, let's talk more about this. And this is the co-sleeping, right? I didn't get that. I mean, she said it doesn't interfere with. Where are they going around the house?
They asked her. They didn't ask the husband. You
right,
notice
right.
that. I'm
where
sure
are they going around? If you have
opinion.
children are everywhere in the house. Yes. So you know.
Now, Vinny?
I don't know. Let me go to Catherine on that, so I don't have to actually look her in the face. I can watch her on TV. Catherine, I mean, this is the one that might be difficult because I know with one of my sons, he likes to jump into bed when he wakes up in the middle of the night, every night, night after night, after night, after night, after night. If we let him sleep in the bed, he'd probably still be there, and you know, it could put a little. It could change the dynamic at night a little bit. That's all I'm saying, Catherine. So that's my bigger concern here is that part of the attachment parenting is allowing the child to make that choice. Because, I mean, you could get a child who's very comfortable there for quite some time.
Yeah, well, as I said before the break, my son is still there. We're having a very hard time, you know, getting him out of that bed. You know, and I'm really...
Now, does he start there or end up there?
He generally ends up there. We start by putting him to bed. We've been working very, very hard at this, but he ends up there. And look, the challenge that we confront, and I think that every attachment parent does or is going to confront this, you know, is that the child is now setting the boundaries. Parents need to set the boundaries, you know, and, you know, to Jamie's point about her sex life with her husband, I mean, my goodness, you know, when you're the parents of small children and babies, you're exhausted, you know. If you've got a baby between you and your partner, there's a baby between you and your partner. I mean, that can't help but just get in the way
Let me tell you the biggest problem I have with my son, and now I'm going to out him right now. It's you, Max. It's you. When he jumps in he ends up he can't sleep straight. He's got to sleep sideways, and now I've got a king-size bed,
how old
right?
is your son, though?
He's 8.
Okay.
I got a king-size bed, and I'm like cramped on the side, and my wife is like over there, and he's got the whole thing in the middle.
Can I add something to this? I have an 11-year-old stepdaughter, and this is the one part of the attachment parenting I don't have an issue with, the co-sleeping. My baby can jump into bed at any time she feels she needs to, if she's afraid of the dark, if she just, whatever she needs to do. Now, my 11-year-old, we wake up sometimes and she's at the foot of the bed sleep. We didn't even know she came into the room. But it's sort of the same thing. I don't have an issue. Maybe it's because until I was about 14, I slept in the same bed with my sister, but that was because of poverty. So, you know, it's a little different. That is different than breastfeeding your 7-year-old child who can walk up to you, put a stool, and climb up and pull your breast out.
Well, she doesn't do it that way in real life. That was for dramatic impact on the cover of the magazine, Mel? I know you're cringing, but that's not the way they do it. She doesn't stand next to a chair at home and breastfeed her child.
Some people might.
Yeah.
You might have to. How do you do it then?
Well, she holds them, and it's part of the attachment. It's the cuddling. He doesn't actually stand up and do it and pose the way they. It's amazing they got the kid to pose.
Did you see his face? He looks like, why is my mom making me do this? It's one thing if you breastfeed, but another thing to do it on the cover of a magazine.
And he was actually feeding there. They didn't fake that part of it.
Do his friends start making fun of him, and
Well,
does he start getting issues because of it?
He's going to hate me.
That's the other part of it.
Later.
Yeah, that's the other part of this that could be a problem. You know, they hit that certain age where it's beyond cute, and you got friends, and they talk. But I think he's still at the point. He's like 3. He's a big 3-year-old. Okay. So he's not. I don't think he's at school yet.
But there's people older. There's other people out there that are doing it beyond 3.
So how about you with the co-sleeping? I mean,
the co-sleeping, same thing. I mean, our 4-year-old
they jump in.
Jumps in sometimes. Would I?
Do you pick them back up and tuck them back in sometimes?
Sometimes, yes, because I think that part of being a good parent is maintaining the relationship with my husband and showing that strong side as well. And I think that we have to have that intimacy, and we have to be able to be a couple. Just the two of us sometimes. It shouldn't always be the family.
Thank you so much, ladies, and happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you, Benny.